Hello, Sunny here. Thanks for joining me so you can see everything that we did in Istanbul. It was absolutely amazing. I loved Turkey. I know you've heard of Hagia Sophia and you've heard of the Blue Mosque, but there are so many sights and sounds and amazing things to see in Istanbul. So let's get started. The city is alive with sights and sounds and colors, and also amazing aromas. And the food was fantastic. You could have most of the time we ate outside because it was so beautiful out, and there's so many outdoor cafes to eat at. All different kinds of spices and really exotic foods. This one was really great because they cooked it right at your table. Have a look.
Oh, he's gonna break the clay pot then.
Single use.
Same thing.
Most of the restaurants that we ate at also had a woman making these beautiful giant sheets of like a pan, but they called it pancake. It's really big and thin, like a crepe, and they fill it with everything from sweet to savory. Remember, you're in the ancient city of Turkey, and one of the traditional styles of eating in Turkey is to sit on a floor on rugs and on pillows. And so you can see here that this is what right here in this window, that's how they're seating. Some restaurants, everybody is sitting on the rugs and pillows. Others have a combination of regular, like American and European style tables, or with combined with the ones where you can sit on the rugs and the pillows. They have every kind of shish kebab you can imagine, and they were really fresh and fantastic. You can have veal, beef, chicken, fish, all different kinds of vegetables. The plates are very full of food, so you never leave hungry. And oftentimes, they're also throw on rice or potatoes or both. So you're going to always leave full. You never have to worry about that. And don't forget to try out some of the fantastic desserts. Speaking of desserts, look at these cabinets. They have glass cabinets in all of the restaurants because they have such fantastic desserts and delicacies. You can get baklava, so very similar to Greece, all kinds of candies, and the coffee, of course, is Turkish coffee, which is very strong and goes wonderfully with these very decadent sweet desserts. Get a load of this glass cabinet with these giant cakes. They were fantastic. We always stopped and had dessert here and at a few of the other shops that are all part of that really big square where the cathedrals or the churches and mausoleums are. More sweets, more delicacies. This is a cabinet that's filled with little cakes and also really great baklava. That tower there is baklava. We had a couple of different restaurants that we loved to get breakfast at. You can see in front of John, he has this really excellent combination of kind of a chorizo, a spicy meat with eggs and cheese. I have one of the big pancakes filled with eggs and with vegetables and with ham. And of course, it also comes with the salad and the potatoes. And that's a normal breakfast. But also, they have a lot of baked goods. So sometimes we would do both. We'd kind of share the savory and also have some sweet. Turkish coffee is wonderful and strong, and they do beautiful different kinds of combinations, just like we have in Europe and in the US. John is having a combination there that is the coffee and chocolate. I'm just having a regular cappuccino. And of course, the Turkish coffee is so strong, and they always give you a little delicacy, a sweet baked good with your coffees. Here's an alfresco lunch that we had just outside of the palace, and you'll see more about the palace soon. But they do a lot of cooking outside, and there's also a lot of excellent ice creams that a lot of these restaurants have that are perfect after you've had spicy food for lunch or dinner. Here I am sitting in front of one of the palaces that's right along the water, and you'll see some more views of that. I wasn't allowed to videotape or do photographs inside of this particular palace, but others I was, and you'll be able to see those. All of the squares have their beautiful historic buildings lit up at night. Here's Hagia Sophia. This is Constantine's column, and this was built on a track that was made for chariot races and sporting and other social events in Constantinople, which is what the which Istanbul was called before it was conquered by the Turkish, and when it was then called Istanbul. And this dates back to 330 AD. It became Istanbul in 1930. This is the Archaeological Museum and also art. I absolutely loved this place. I could have spent a couple of days looking at all these giant rooms with all the beautiful sculptures and paintings and mosaics. It's just filled with everything you can imagine. A lot of the art will be similar to or both familiar to you, like Greek art. But you've got to go to this place. I didn't even know about it until I got there and we were walking around and we kind of stumbled upon it as we were on our way to the palace. But you are going to definitely want to go. The Archaeological Museum, it was, of course, one of my favorites. But one of the neat things they do is they put all of these sculptures in the center, and then on the walls, they do murals of those particular times when these sculptures were created. It really kind of brings it all to life for you. And that's one of the really, really great pleasures when you see this huge museum. There were multiple rooms that had these beautiful carved esophaguses. And there must have been so many rich people in Istanbul and Constantinople because it just was really amazing. I wish I could have taken pictures of all of them so you could see them, but then this video would have just been too long. So do go, you're going to love it. We had beautiful weather in June to go to Turkey. And this is in front of the Blue Mosque. And you'll see there that there's a giant fountain. This fountain is kind of in between the Blue Mosque and also the oldest Turkish bathhouse that is also in that square. King Mahmut's wife, she had it commissioned for the women of Istanbul. And of course, no visit to Turkey is complete without a Turkish bath. So you're definitely going to want to go. We loved it. You can see the mosaics that are in the inside of the Blue Mosque. Unfortunately, this particular time, there was a lot of work being done, so you can kind of see the scaffolding here, but still, it was just beautiful. And you always have to wear, when you go into the mosques, you also always have to have your head covered. And so make sure you buy a scarf outside of any of these particular mosques so that you're ready to go. And they're really reasonable. You can get a scarf for $5. But look at them and choose one really, really wonderful one because then you can have it later as a wrap. Men and women pray in different areas. In fact, the mosques were originally built just for men to go and have prayer. And they go and do prayer multiple times a day. But they now have separate sections for the men and the women. Of course, the women's section is much, much smaller. And again, you will have your head covered and also no shoes on your feet to show respect. Both the Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia and other small mosques all over Istanbul have a place where you can leave your shoes, and so you can see that these are kind of like bookcase shelves where we left ours. Right next to the Blue Mosque is a beautiful museum with mosaics, and these mosaics date back, more than 1,000 years, and they're teeny teeny pieces, and you'll be able to see those. This particular one has, you can see that there's also gold leaf in them, but others that are just little bitty tiny tiny pieces of mosaic to make up these animals and the people. Well, you can see how teeny tiny the mosaic pieces are. These are the little bitty tiles that they make up these amazing floors, ceilings, and walls, all the scenes of the day more than 1,000 years ago. And so this gives you a basic comparison next to my fingers. I think one of the most fantastic things about this mosaic museum is you get to see what daily life is like. Like here, you see that there are people with their animals that are helping them with the work that they're doing in the city. Here's a dog, a couple of dogs attacking this poor bunny, and so you see the man and you see the man the detail work in his daily life. So that's one of the fun things about going into this museum is you see what the daily life was like in ancient times. This is the Topkapi Palace. The multiple sultans, multiple generations of sultans, which means king or leader, have lived in this palace, including Mehmet the Conqueror in about 1450s. He's the one that conquered Constantinople. Constantine was the person that was in charge of Constantinople until it was conquered by Mehmet. And again, that was in the 1450s, and that's when it became Istanbul. And also later on, it became democratic. Mehmet really wanted to not be the ultimate ruler. He wanted to have people from all over that would come together to help make decisions about Istanbul and about Turkey. As you can imagine, everything is gold gilded and mosaics and paintings. It's just fantastic in the palace. Make sure you go. You get a headset that's in your own, you choose your own language, and you're able to go room to room, and it's just worth it. And also, you learn all about the history of the sultans. Also, part of the palace tour is all the the armory rooms. And so those are swords and daggers and armor. And this is one of, you can see how very sultany this looks with this particular dagger that is bejeweled to the max. Again, all of the decor inside and out all over Turkey is mosaics and inlaid tile designs. So you can see that in the ceilings. Also, the even the pebbles on the ground are in a mosaic patterns. The palace is right along the Bosphorus Strait, so you can see the beautiful water behind us. You can take a boat ride all around there, and I'll show you more about that because we did that. And what's so cool is right now we are on the European side of Istanbul. When you cross over the Bosphorus Strait on the bridge to the other side, you are then in Asia. Again, here are more of the weapons that you can find in the armory. Well, if you've learned any history at all about sultans, is that sultans have wives and they also have concubines and they usually have loads of children. So they have separate section of the palace where you can go and see the rooms where the wives, concubines, and all the children lived daily. Here's the courtyard to the concubine and the wives and children's sections of the palace. The one thing you'll know is that wife number one is the dominant one, so she will have the nicest bedroom, and of course, her children are the firstborn. So, of course, they would become the next sultans. Excuse me. So, you get to hear all about that when you are listening to your headset. Look at how beautiful all the harem quarters are. The wives and concubines and the children live in, of course, a lap of luxury, just like you've seen in the movies. Here again is just outside the palace. The gardens are beautiful, all sculpted and right along the Bosphorus Strait as well. Now, the lines going into Hagia Sophia can be very long. You'll see them every time you're walking around some of the squares where the Hagia Sophia and the fountain and the Blue Mosque are and the Turkish baths. They're all in the same section, same area. And you always see the line for Hagia Sophia going wrapped around multiple buildings in the square. So made sure to get there early. It opens at 9 o'clock. We got there at 8:15 in the morning, and we were go walking in about 9:15, so we were only in the line for about 45 minutes to an hour, just under an hour. You're going to want to definitely go first thing in the morning to get in that line, so when it opens you're able to be one of the first groups to walk in, which is what happened to us. um, If you try to do it in the middle of the day, like you're on a cruise and you only have a certain amount of time, it's definitely worth it because this is one of the main things to see. In fact, it probably is number one thing to see on your cruise when you stop in Istanbul. So do get in the line immediately when you get into this main area of Istanbul. But I really hope that you're able to stay a little bit longer so that you can get there first thing in the morning, so you don't have to stay in lines for like 2 to 3 hours. Here we are doing a selfie before we walk into Hagia Sophia. Everything was absolutely stunning in Hagia Sophia Mosque. It was just beautiful. The ceilings, the floors, the carpets, the chandeliers. It's everything that you hope it's going to be, and more. So you cannot miss it. Your trip to Istanbul would not be complete if you did not do Hagia Sophia. And again, don't forget the Turkish bath. So you can see I have my scarf. There are so many tours on the Bosphorus Strait, and so we just went and looked at the top tours and looked at the reviews. And this one was really reasonable. It included lunch, and the lunch was really filling, like 6 courses, and it was very reasonable. I want to say it was something like $50 or $60 each, and we were gone for more than 2 hours. So we're on the Bosphorus Strait. It takes you all the way to the Black Sea, and you get to have this beautiful bridge that you'll see in one of the next photos. And so you get to go right on to the bridge where that's where the Black Sea begins. There are so many beautiful buildings. There are mosques and palaces all along the tour that you do on the water on the Bosphorus Strait. And so this is just a sample of one of them. You're going to see many of them. So you can see the beautiful bridge behind us. Behind, on the other side of that bridge is the Black Sea. So we're in the Bosphorus Strait, touring around and seeing all the palaces and all of the mosques and beautiful. We could see how beautiful the day was. But this particular tour takes you all the way to the Black Sea, which is where that bridge is, and it was just wonderful, and the food was great too. Here we are going under the bridge, but also I wanted to show you this photo because you can see that up on the hill is a really beautiful mosque as well. Okay. It's Turkish bath day. I was so excited to be able to go in. Now, the Turkish baths, there is one bath for the women and one for the men. And you're in there for 2 to 3 hours, depending on all the different services that you decide to choose. You got to do it, ladies. You are never going to forget it. Now, as soon as I got back to the mainland, to the States, I immediately tried to find out who does Turkish baths in the US. And of course, New York City and I think Chicago and also San Francisco all have Turkish baths. And so the next one I'm going to do here in the US is going to be in New York. Have a look at this building. I love the arches. Remember, it was Mehmet the Conqueror's, the Sultan Mehmet. His wife is the one that had this women's Turkish bath commissioned, and it's right there in front of Hagia Sophia and in between Blue Mosque, so you can't miss it. Talk about beautiful. You are pampered. You have your own personal masseuse, and she's also one that does your bath, and she's the one that guides you. You have your own personal person the entire time you're there, but also they don't stay with you the whole time. You get to be on your own too. But as far as going from from the bath to the massage to go and have your tea, taken to your own private dressing room, that person is with you for all of those things. This is from the second floor from my private dressing room, taking a photo looking down at some of the ladies in the fountain, and there's chandeliers everywhere. It is just pampered delight. You've got to do it. In the middle of the bath is this huge table that you lay on, and there's women laying all around the circumference of this big circle table, and you are put into the woman who is working doing the bath with you. They are putting you into a big layer of bubbles. I had so many bubbles around me that I couldn't see anything like around me because you had so many bubbles. It was like I can't even describe it except to say that it just felt so relaxing and smelled so good. And this is the table that you'll be laying on when they do the bubbles and scrub you. Okay, so now I'm sitting down where I first took that first picture, and I've just been scrubbed by my personal pamperer, and now they're going to be bringing me, or they have brought me my tea and my Turkish delight candies, which you'll see next. Talk about decadent, and the Turkish delight candies and the tea were fantastic. You can have as much as you want of everything. You can stay there all day if you want, which is what I wanted to do. If my boyfriend weren't, waiting for me because his didn't last as long, I literally would have just stayed the entire time because it was such an amazing experience. This is my private dressing room. You can see that you have this, it's beautiful spa, like teak woods and the inlaid wood on the mirror. And then I have my soaps and I have my slippers. I have this wrap to wrap around me. There's just everything that you need is there. And it was really lovely to have this private space. This is a photo so you can see what the private rooms look like. On that third level, the top level, that's where you get massages done. But right there in the middle, those two, floor one and or floor two and floor three, those are the private dressing rooms, and each one of you will have one. They don't put multiple people in each one, and they only will book as many as the facility will hold, as the bath will hold. So it's never overcrowded. One of our favorite places to have lunch and sometimes breakfast is this two-story. I think it was three stories actually, but we were always on the second floor, and you can look out to that square where I've been telling you about, where everything is: the Blue Mosque, another smaller mosque, the Turkish baths, Hagia Sophia. You can see it all from that second floor, and there's a bakery at the restaurants. Most of them right there along there too, but this one has a fun view, and I wanted you to see. This is standard. This is not like luxury. This is like a $10 lunch, which includes your drinks, because everything is very, very reasonable there. I'm sure you've heard about the Turkish markets. They've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they go on for miles. These tunnels are everywhere. Part of the market is outside, like a big market square, which is kind of what we're used to here in plazas or squares in the US. Some of it is like that, but most of it are these tunnels that are endless. They go on for miles in all different directions, and there's so many beautiful things to buy and to eat and to drink. These lights, of course, are traditional. Of course, they also have the beautiful inlaid wood. I bought a chess set for my brother and for my son. These beautiful lights I bought for my daughter. And they have leather goods. They have all the carpets, of course, and the rugs and all of the different purses that are made from them. You're going to have a blast. And things are very reasonably priced too. I wanted you to see this I wanted you to see this photo because I want you to know that as you're walking around Istanbul, everywhere you turn, there are beautiful ancient things to see. And these, I guess maybe they all don't fit into the archaeological museum, because you pretty much are walking around history at every step. Istanbul takes care of their feral cats and dogs. And in fact, they even have these little houses for both of them, but mostly for the cats. This one is a house that had like three different rooms that the kitties can go in. And so you can see this is the one that was really close to our Airbnb that we rented. But these kind of little houses, as well as places for food, are all over the place for cats and for dogs. Now, here is a donation machine. So, if you wanted to be somebody who helps to feed the cats, you can just put in a credit card or just put in a little bit of money, and it puts food in the dispenser so that kitties and doggies are able to eat. But also, all the restaurants are putting food out as well, and you'll see that as you're walking around. These kitties and doggies do not go hungry. These cute kitties are everywhere. This one was sitting when we were having that food cooked at our table in the pot, the stew. Two or three of these little guys were kind of wandering around. They don't try to climb on you or anything, because remember, they are feral and they're skittish, but they do like to hang out and they're really sweet. When you're not looking at the ancient buildings like the mosques and the squares, you see vivid color everywhere. And so this is just one photo of what all these different pastel colors look like as you're walking around up and down almost every street in Istanbul. It had this kind of look. Whenever I go to different countries, I always like looking at the American products, but how they have been culturally made to fit the taste of the particular area. And this was really great because these Lay's potato chips are yogurt cucumber. So how good does that sound? So we bought some and we had some that night with just like some sausages that we had bought so we could eat it at our house that we'd rented. But I just wanted you to see it because it's a fun thing to see our products that we see every day, but localized. Again, here's more of the colors that you see as you're walking around of the housing and of the shops. But also, I wanted you to see this because everywhere you walk to are cobblestone streets. Some of the patterns of the carpets and of the pillows and the table settings, they're just so vivid and beautiful. Others are very, very muted, but I wanted you to see this particular table that's in one of the restaurants that we frequented, so you can see when you sit on the floor, you do have these beautiful things, pillows and that you're sitting on and carpets. This particular restaurant is the whole restaurant. You are sitting on the floor, on the pillows and the carpets. So I wanted you to kind of get a look through the window at one of those restaurants. All right, are you ready for a magic carpet ride like with the ones that Aladdin was riding on? There are so many sellers of carpets, and of course, they are coming up to you and saying, "Are you going to buy a carpet? Are you going to buy a carpet?" Just they're kind. Just say, "Nope, nope, we're good," or "We already bought one," or whatever it is you want to say. We didn't buy any carpets, although I did buy some things that were woven. They weren't carpets, but I wanted you to see this photo because a lot of the shops that you pass by, they show you the particular ones they're working on, so you can see these looms. The detail work, these are just like the size of a rug. I would say maybe 3 foot by 5 foot, but the amount of detail in them are just spectacular. The beauty of these muted colors and the scenes that they're putting in them. I just don't know how people have the patience to put together such beauty. And so they're worth every dollar you spend on them. And many Americans and people around the world buy Turkish carpets and rugs, and you can see why. They're just stunning. This little guy was always on our way home. You can see one of the places where you can buy rugs and carpets, but they also use their weaving to make purses and satchels and suitcases. And this little guy was sitting on this one almost every time. And now this is the satchel. That's the kind of thing that I bought as far as for myself and for gifts. But I didn't buy this one with the little guy on it because obviously this one's his. Istanbul is the new cool. I think that's absolutely right. There's so many things to see and do. The vibrant colors, the ancient history, the fact that you get to be in two countries just by crossing the bridge. Istanbul is the only city in the world that is on two continents. It's in Europe, and then you cross over, and then you're in Asia. It's everyone is so friendly, so many different cultures coming together, and you are going to love it. Make sure, I'm pretty sure it's on most of your bucket lists. If it is, get there and have an amazing time.